Failure isn't the enemy of success, hesitation is. We call it calculating to make it sound smart, but it's actually just a fear with a spreadsheet. You can't calculate your way out of the need for courage. While you're sitting in the waiting room refining your vision, someone with half your talent but twice your nerve is out there eating your lunch. You're waiting for a contract from the universe guaranteed that you won't look stupid, but the only thing you're actually guaranteed is the permanent rot of regret. You don't get clarity by thinking, you get clarity by hitting things and seeing what breaks. You've been running a simulation of your life instead of actually living it, and it's time to shut that program down. By the end of this video, you will have the psychological toolkit to kill the perfectionist and the physical plan to finally shift into gear. You think your hesitation is a sign of high intelligence? You think your high standards are why you haven't started yet? You spent the last 6 months analyzing the entry points and compiling the data, which is just a fancy way of saying you haven't moved an inch. You've told your friends and most importantly yourself that you aren't procrastinating, you're just a meticulous professional who refuses to settle for mediocrity. But let's strip away the ego. You're a coward. Your deliberation is just a high-end disguise for a low-level lack of nerve. You aren't analyzing the entry points, you're just staring at the door because you are terrified of what happens once you walk through it. You aren't compiling data, you're building the paper wall to hide behind so you don't have to face the world's judgment. You have weaponized your vocabulary to make a biological spasm look like a business plan. You don't admit you're flinching, you say, "I want to do it perfectly." That sentence is a lie. It sounds noble, but perfectly is just the witness protection program for your ego. You watch others make messy public mistakes and you think, "I'd never do it that way. I'll wait until I can do it perfectly." But here is the cold truth. The person making those dumb mistakes is miles ahead of you. They're interacting with reality while you're just performing a mental rehearsal for a play that never opens. They're getting the bruises that turn into lessons while you are staying safe and staying stagnant. It's easier to look like a genius in your head than a novice in a real world. Inside your skull, you're a legend in your own time. Your logic is a bulletproof because it hasn't been punched in the face by a customer, a critic, or a competitor yet. You hide in the strategy phase to protect the title of genius, knowing that the action is the great equalizer. Action turns visionaries into beginners, and you aren't ready to be a student again. You have weaponized your IQ to find reasonable doubt in every opportunity. Stop pretending your paralysis is a virtue. It's just a fear with a PhD. The world has no reward for the brilliance you keep in the dark. It only honors the courage to be seen. The most seductive lie we tell ourselves is that the careful thought is a sign of strength. It isn't. It is a systematic glitch. When you face a new opportunity, your prefrontal cortex tries to build the bridge to the future, but your amygdala is busy digging a moat. Your body reacts to a bold career move with the same chemical flood it would use for a physical assault. Your nervous system cannot distinguish between a volatile market and a literal punch to the face. It's an ancient system trying to solve the problem, and the math never adds up. The tragic of your intelligence is that you're trying to use logic to negotiate with a part of your brain that doesn't speak a language. Your department of ambition is speaking in ROI, legacy and purpose, while your department of survival is just screaming danger in raw electricity. The smarter you are, the better your survival brain is at drafting legal sounding reasons to stay on the couch. You aren't just scared, you are a genius at justifying your fear. The transition from biology to reality is there your ego takes the hardest hit. Once you realize that your brain is lying to protect you, you have to confront the second lie, the belief that your analysis actually works. Overthinking is actually a God complex in disguise. You have convinced yourself that if you just think long enough, you can calculate every variable, anticipate every hurdle, and predict the future before it happens. You treat the world like a game of chess where you can see 22 moves ahead. But life isn't chess, it's a dark room where the furniture moves every time you blink. When you spend weeks predicting how the project will go, you aren't being thorough, you're being arrogant. You're assuming you have enough data to model reality. But reality only gives up its secrets to those who touch it. You've decided your mental simulation is more reliable than real-world feedback. You'd rather be right in your head about why something won't work than be wrong in public while figuring out how it could. The truth is, the most important information you need doesn't exist in your books, your spreadsheets, or your browser tabs. It only exists in the doing. By trying to predict the outcome to avoid the mess, you're effectively trying to learn how to swim by studying the molecular density of water. You are currently screaming at a brick wall and wondering why it won't negotiate. Reality isn't a puzzle to be solved, it's a physical conversation. The answers you are looking for are hidden inside the mistakes you are currently too afraid to make. We have proven that your internal narrative is a fraud, and your foresight is just a vivid hallucination. But there is one last trap your ego refuses to let go: the intoxicating myth of perfect timing. You're waiting for a green light that doesn't exist. You've convinced yourself that there will eventually be a Tuesday morning where the stars align, your bank account hits a specific number, and your internal doubt finally falls silent. You tell yourself you're waiting for readiness. But let's be honest, you're waiting for a guarantee. You want a universe to sign a contract promising you won't look stupid. You say, I'll start when things settle down, or I will launch once I have more breathing room. But settle down is a state reserved for symmetry. Life is inherently volatile, noisy, and inconvenient. If you look at the people who actually built the things you admire, they didn't start when the lights were green. They started while they were being chased, while they were broke, while they were unqualified, or while they were grieving. They didn't have a breathing room, they had a sense of urgency that told them the cost of waiting was higher than the cost of failing. By waiting for the perfect time, you're handing your life over to your circumstances. You're declaring that the world must change before you can. It is betrayal of your potential disguised as the wait for the right signal. The green light doesn't appear before you start. The act of starting is what turns the light green. You don't find the path, you dread it into existence. If you wait until every intersection in your map is green before you pull out of your driveway, you will die in your garage. Stop asking the world for permission to move. The permission was already granted the moment you felt hunger to be born. We spend so much time obsessed over the risk of doing that we completely ignore the catastrophic cost of not doing. You have been treating your hesitation like a safety net, but it's actually a debt with a compounding interest rate. Every time you choose more research over more action, you aren't just delaying your success, you are slowly eroding your self-trust. Your subconscious doesn't care about your sophisticated excuses, it only sees a broken promise. But there is one final consequence. The more you wait, the more you train yourself to believe that your own intentions don't matter. The tragedy of the overthinker is not that they fail, but that they never found out if they would have succeeded. This is the toll of the unlived life. It is the silent bitter rot that sets in when you watch someone with half your intellect, but twice your courage, execute something that you have been perfecting for years. While you were waiting for the perfect conditions to begin, they were in the chaos, gaining the scars and the success you only talk about. You haven't escaped a setback, you have just traded a potential loss for a guaranteed failure. You believe you're dodging a pain of a failure, but you're actually choosing a permanent torture of regret. A failure is a visible scar that builds character. What if is an invisible parasite that drains your soul because it has no closure, only a loop of could have been. The world has no use for a genius hidden in your head. Every day you spend calculating is a day you are paying for a life that you aren't actually living. You are burning your most precious resource, time, just to stay parked. It's time to stop worrying about the price of a wrong turn and start fearing the staggering, irreversible cost of standing still. We've spent 5 chapters dismantling your defenses. By now, you should realize that your deep thinking is a liability and your perfectionism is a prison. But knowing you are stuck isn't the same as moving. To break the cycle of paralysis, you need to change the way you interact with the world. You need to stop trying to build a monument and start throwing stones. The overthinker's mistake is believing that their first move must be the defining move. The cure is to adopt the mindset of a laboratory scientist, not a monument builder. A scientist doesn't hope an experiment works. They run it to see specifically if it fails. You must lower the stakes until the fear of starting is smaller than the curiosity of the result. You don't need a business plan. You need a conversation with the customer. You don't need a 300-page manuscript. You need a 200-word post. Whatever you have been perfecting over the last month, you are going to execute a disposable version of it within the next 24 hours. If it's a business, sell the concept to one person. If it's a book, write the shittiest page possible. If it's a fitness goal, do 10 minutes of movement right now. The goal is to produce ugly data. You're looking for friction, for resistance, for anything that proves you are no longer in your head, and finally in the arena. Success in this chapter isn't defined by a win, it is defined by an interaction. Your goal is to collect one piece of real-world feedback that you didn't have yesterday. Once you realize that the failure didn't kill you, but in fact give you the clarity you've been looking for years, the big thinking trap loses its power over you. The intellectual games are over. The psychological posturing has to stop. We have reached the end of the logic, the end of excuses, and eventually we will reach the end of the clock. Imagine yourself decades from now, sitting in a quiet room, looking back at the person you are today. All the things that currently terrify you, the fear of a bad review, the risk of a lost investment, the embarrassment of a public mistake, look like microscopic dust. They're invisible. What stays visible is the void. You won't remember the careful analysis you did in the February of this year. You won't feel proud of the meticulous data you compiled instead of launching. You will only feel the heavy, cold weight of the doors that you never opened. Ask yourself, will I be glad I calculated so much? Will you be proud that you stayed in the safety of the waiting room while the world moved on without you? Or will you be haunted by the fact that you had the intellect, the ideas, and the hunger, but lacked the raw nerve to be seen trying? Regret for things done, the mistakes, crashes, the dumb moves, fades quickly as we learn and adapt. But regret for things not done stays forever. It is a permanent weight on the soul. The green light is a myth. The perfect time is a lie. The risk of doing is a distraction. There is only the work, the clock, and your choice. Stop thinking, start failing, and start living. The cure starts here. To help you break the cycle, I've put the 24-hour micro-experiment worksheet in the description below. Download it, fill it out, and execute. Pay the tax of mediocrity today so you can own excellence tomorrow. It was Mary today. God bless my viewers, and I'll see you in the next one.